Good morning, Lou, Keitha. So this is almost $30 million that would go to help people, and it's coming from the Treasury Department. So what it's going to help is to keep people from becoming homeless, living out here. You have to meet some requirements though, but if you do meet the criteria, help is on the way. Florida has the second highest risk of evictions in the country, according to a study done by business research company AdvisorSmith that looked at census data and was published in December. Eligibility requirements for the program include having an income that falls below 80% of the area median income. For example, a family of 4 must have an income of $60,000 or less. Applicants must also live in Duval County, provide proof of hardship like unemployment benefits, and have a documented risk of housing instability or homelessness. United Way and JEA are also contributing money to help.
Eligible families that are facing eviction will be prioritized.
President Joe Biden has extended the moratorium on federally guaranteed mortgages to June 30th. This program had been scheduled to end March 31st. The president did not address a federal moratorium on evictions of tenants who've fallen behind on rent. That program is still set to expire at the end of March. Again, they will help cover up to a year of rent and utility payments. The way to sign up for it has not become available just yet. We're still waiting to hear about that process, but city representatives say that the process, an application process, will be open here pretty soon. I'm Renata DiGregorio, live in Duval County. First Coast News on your side.